1 month, 18 states, 15 national parks, and 7,837 miles covered. Hello and welcome new friends to the Peachy Keens and our old friends as well. We are a homeschool family of 5 that love to travel and share our family-friendly travel tips. And we just returned, as I mentioned, from a 30-day adventure out west to visit some of our nation's national parks. And we tent camped along the way. So a lot of it was primitive tent camping where we used an app to find locations where it was free to camp, which often meant majority of the time that there was no water, no bathrooms. So we would love to share for families who are interested in this type of trip, the materials and resources that we used while we were on the trip. Before we left, I started looking on YouTube, and it was hard for me to find families that had gone for this long. There were families that would take weekend trips, and so they'd have all this nice prepared food and equipment, and the way we traveled was to just throw it all in our van, organized as well as we could, and then to head off. So before I left, I filmed some of the things that we brought, but now hindsight, I can share with you what things worked, what things didn't, and then the essentials that we feel that are really helpful when you want to do this type of trip. So if this sounds like something that would be helpful, we'd love for you to come along and join us and give us a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and share your comments below. We'd like to help by answering any questions that you might have. So let's start. Okay, so when it comes time to packing your clothes, these are some little things I bought. They are mesh laundry bags. I actually got them at the Dollar Tree, and they come with a pack of 3. And we're using them to keep underwear and socks in, just so that when we grab out of the big bags, we will be able to find our socks and underwear easy. So instead of using a suitcase to organize our clothes, each person is going to have one of these shrink pack bags with their clothes in it. So these are Hefty brand, and what you do is you fill it with your clothes. I'll show you what it looks like when you're done, and then you just kind of lay on it and the air will come out of this. I also have the Ziploc brand, and I really like those as well. Just be careful when you buy them. A lot of them are, or not a lot of them, but I bought another brand that was vacuum only. So see, these say dual use vacuum or press, and we do not want the vacuum ones because we likely will not, well, we won't have a vacuum, and so I would look for the Hefty or the Ziploc. I'm not sure if the Ziploc brand sells them anymore, but this is what they look like when they're done. It just flattens everything out and gives you some more space rather than taking suitcases. Okay, so this is post-trip Cynthia sharing about the Ziploc bags. So I found them a little bit annoying, and I would love to know if there's someone else that has come up with a better method for this, if you could leave it in the comments. But it still, I think, is the best method that I can think of. I've really thought hard about this. If there's a different way to organize clothing, I will say that the Ziplocs from the Dollar Tree were excellent. It did make it way easier to find their socks and underwear quickly, because that's something that you're gonna need every single day, where sometimes we wore the same clothes 2 times in a row, and the underwear I could just get in and grab, you know, from the little Ziplocs. I think the only thing that I would maybe change is buying some of those like luggage organizers, or like they're very similar to the mesh bags, but they're different sizes and different colors. And that may be a way you could put, like, okay, I'm gonna put the shorts, everybody's shorts are gonna be in the orange bag and everybody's shirts, but of course that's more money as well to buy all that stuff. So it worked for what it was. Like I said, it's definitely better than suitcases because the suitcases take up so much space. For us, that was the best thing that I came up with, and it worked pretty good. It just, like I said, it was difficult when you'd get in the back and you'd have to be like shuffling through everybody's clothes to try to find what you were looking for, and especially when it's dark and you might just have a headlamp on your head. One tip I was given was to have a caddy so that when you go to the bathroom, you can just carry this along and it has everything that you need in it. So I found this at Walmart. It actually was on clearance, so that was a good deal. Then I have a body soap for myself and then body soap for my daughter. So we have one caddy for the girls and one caddy for the boys. Then we have shampoo and conditioner here. My razor is here. And then on the other side is our toothbrush, floss, our little mouthwash. We also have our brushes, deodorant, some foot spray. So whatever you need in the restroom or bathroom, you can put in your caddy, and that just makes it easier to get to and from the restroom.
Post-trip Cynthia says a definite 2 thumbs up for the shower caddies. We actually didn't shower. This sounds awful. We didn't shower a ton. We used wipes a lot because we were doing the primitive camping, and so we also did hotels in between. That's when we would shower. But those caddies were excellent to be able to bring into the hotel, or when we did shower, to have them for the individual, you know, for the male and the female when we split up, to have them for that. And then just also, they're just easy to find in the car. So we had them sitting on the back of the, like in the back of the van. And so like when we wanted to brush our teeth at night, it was really easy to just go find all that type of stuff in one place.
Okay, next thing is you want to make sure that you have a first aid kit. We actually have done 2. I'm not going to go over everything that's in these because that is up to you and your doctor's recommendations as to what you bring. But in here I have things for tummy aches, for headaches, that type of stuff. And then in this bag, it's more like Band-Aids, gauze, tape, that type of stuff. So we have 2 of those.
Post-trip Cynthia says that the first aid kit is a definite must. While we didn't use probably half of the stuff that I brought, I was thankful that we used the things that we did. I had some I think it's called Bactrim spray, which is like basically antiseptic spray. We use that quite a bit. Of course, like Neosporin, we use quite a bit. Band-Aids, we use quite a bit. But you just never know what you need. But it was nice to know that whenever we needed something, we had it all there organized in a place where we could find it. So the 2 backpacks that we had on the trip were the Deuter, which was just the personal backpack where I stuck some of the medical supplies down in. We always used it to carry water, jackets, and we found it very useful to have that. It's nice and light, and the way that the back of it is formed, you don't get sweaty. There's like a space between the backpack and then there's a mesh part against your back. And we just found it super helpful, the comfort of it, and then the ease of being able to carry whatever we needed to carry with us. The other backpack that we had with us was our Kelty child carrier, which I would say is a definite must if you are going out west to the national parks and you have a small child. Now, Jonah, our youngest, he's very small for his age. He's 4. And he weighs about, I think, 35 pounds now. So most 4-year-olds are probably gonna weigh more than that. Thankfully, my husband is very strong, but we did use that almost every hike we went on just because he couldn't make it very far. And especially in places like the Hoover Dam, we put him in there just because we knew he was safer. So we really utilize that. So if you can find some type of back carrier for if you have young children, I would highly suggest that if you are going to be going out to the national parks. So those 2 backpacks are things that we would say are essentials if you are going to be hiking while you're on your trip, because they were just very helpful for those things that I mentioned. The Rhino Rack or a similar type carrier was something that when we first were planning for this, I thought like, oh, that'll be nice, you know, in case we need it. Honestly, looking back, I don't think we could have done it without it. We put all of our sleeping bags, our tent up there, and just some of the other things that we needed, our blankets, and we just wouldn't have had the space without it. So if you were going to be traveling in a van or a smaller space like us, I would say that this is something you definitely want to look into. Now, you don't have to spend a fortune. We were able to find ours on OfferUp. It's still pricey, but we feel like it was essential for us to be able to do this type of trip with the supplies that we needed. So I would say if you're going to be going out for a while and you have the type of plan that we had, you will definitely want to look into some type of rooftop carrier.
This Coleman cooler came in nice and handy to use. We used it to brush our teeth,
to use for just basically anytime we needed water. So a lot of times at the national parks they have potable water where you can go ahead and fill up. So anytime we had that opportunity, we would fill it up, and that way we would have water whenever we were at a campsite that did not have water. So any type of storage for water would be helpful, just so that you're not always having to use bottled water. I would recommend 3 pairs of shoes for each family member. First, we brought a pair of flip-flops to use for when we were in a public shower, or just any time that we were in a situation with flip-flops like the sand dunes maybe, or just when you're jumping out of the car to run into a gas station to use the bathroom. Those come in helpful for that. I was surprised, I bought these for each of the kids' boots. They were each a different brand. The younger one had some cute ones, but these that my oldest had were actually the best because they're really tall. So when we used them in the snow, it was really good. His didn't get snow down in them because you could roll them up or roll them down. So I would highly suggest these higher ones, especially if you're gonna be in multiple temperatures like we were, where you might be in the snow. They're great for campsites that are dirty, and my kids wore them all the time. So I would definitely recommend a pair of rubber boots for each child, and then a great pair of sneakers. I had a friend recommend these Ultras to me, and I bought a pair for myself and then for my son and daughter, and we loved them. They're literally like clouds on your feet. They're super bendable, but the thing I loved about them is the traction on the bottom is excellent. So when we were in the Badlands, they were great as far as being on, you know, kind of the side of a mountain. I didn't have to worry about the kids slipping. So I would highly recommend, if you're looking for a pair of trail shoes, to think about these Ultra trail shoes. And they also have zero, I think it's called zero lift, which I was worried that that would hurt our feet, but nobody had trouble with their feet. And the inserts come out, so once your child starts to grow out of them, you can pull the inserts out, and that gives you more space. But the 3 pairs of shoes for everybody worked out perfect. So this is something we did not think of until a couple of nights into our trip, but the wind was awful, and the stakes that came with our Kelty tent didn't quite do the job. So when we stopped somewhere, there was a woman selling these extra strong camp stakes. So I would highly recommend these, especially if you're going to be out west where it's so windy. These really keep your tent down well. In addition to the stakes, you would want to consider having a mallet. This comes in handy when you have harder ground that you're having to get your stakes down into. So consider picking up one of these at your local hardware store before you leave. Another thing that we used almost every day was our Coleman double burner. So with this, you need the propane tanks. So we left having, I think 2 propane tanks, or maybe even 1. We did get in a place where we ran out, so you want to make sure you always have a spare available. And then this is the kettle that we used, or teapot, which also was used almost every day. So we had things like cup of noodles, like these, that all you had to do was add water. We had oatmeal and grits, and so that came out to be really helpful almost every single day. This one's probably an obvious, but you will want a good pot and pan. We use the pot for beanie weenies, for soup, anything like that that we needed to heat up. And then we use the pan almost every morning to make eggs. So those are 2 cooking utensils that we used quite a bit on our trip. So this handy dandy contraption was really nice to use to wash dishes in. So it looks like this once you pull it up, but you can also push down on it and it flattens out, so it makes it really easy to travel with. So wipes, and more wipes. So these are the 3 types of wipes that we used on the trip. We used these for when we did not have a shower available and we cleaned off at night. We would just wipe down and then put it in a Ziploc bag and get rid of it with our trash. These I got off of Amazon, and they smell good, and they're extra thick wipes that are biodegradable, but we just threw them away. And then of course these are great for little hands, little bums, whatever you need them for. And then these actually we didn't use a ton, but we did use them
quite a bit, like at picnic tables that weren't super clean or things like that, where we just wanted to make sure that things were clean. So those were the 3 types of wipes that we used quite a bit on the trip. So these were something my husband brought home before the trip that he thought we could use for when we went swimming or took showers. And at first I was a little hesitant about them because they were so small, but they actually worked out to be perfect for the trip. Not only did we use them for bathing, but anytime we might have to wipe something down. So they're really small, but because they are microfiber, they really absorb the water really quickly. So they're great for not taking up very much space, but helping to soak up the water. So we really enjoyed using those and used them quite a bit on the trip. So Ziplocs were another thing that we used a lot. We had brought 1 gallon size and then 2 of the quart sized, which we use these quite a bit. We use them for food storage. One thing we did with the food that we bought ahead of time was we went ahead and took it out of the boxes to save space and put them in Ziplocs. So like our oatmeal, our grits, our snack bars, all that type of stuff we put in a Ziploc so that we wouldn't have to take up the space with the boxes. 2 things that we used pretty much every night that we camped was this Ozark Trail rechargeable lamp, and it's really nice because it comes with a charging port right here that you could just plug into your car when you're driving and charge it up and not have to have batteries for that. And then the other was the headlamps. So we had 3 headlamps, 1 for each adult, and then whichever kid wanted to grab one. But definitely I would get enough for the adults in your group because those are super helpful just once it turns dark, navigating your way around. So I could even see them being helpful for everybody in your party just to have that light. And this one that we have also has a red light on it, which is nice for at night when you're not wanting to shine your light right on everybody. So another thing that I would say is a definite must is a good cooler. This one claimed to keep things cold for 5 days, and we felt like it did a pretty good job. The ice did melt fairly quickly, but as you can see, we kept sodas and water and our chocolate for our s'mores. But we also had eggs. We've taken all that stuff out now. Eggs, cheese, anything that you want to keep cold, and then we would just replenish with ice as we went along. But a cooler is a definite must for primitive camping travel. So another thing we had that thankfully we did not have to use for its intended purpose is just a backup battery power in case our battery in our car did not work. We wanted to have this. We did use it some to charge our phones, but I think it's just a great thing to have as a backup in case your battery dies while on the trip. So I would highly recommend a battery powered pump. We had thought about getting one that you plug into the van, but I was thankful that we didn't, because this was nice to just be able to sit inside the tent and blow up our mats. You will need extra batteries, of course, but this definitely came in helpful. Portable toilet. Ours was just, we bought the seat, which ended up breaking, which we thought was fine because we didn't want it sitting against our back when we use the potty. We bought biodegradable bags to go inside, and you can just do your research as far as disposing of the waste, and then you just buy a bucket, or sometimes they come already all together and you can just buy the whole setup. But this, as much as I did not want to use it, came in super handy for primitive camping, because most primitive camping does not have toilets available, or they might have the vault toilets, which aren't always the most sanitary. So we really use that. The next thing is this tray that you see right here. We used it right here in where you get in the van to put shoes that were maybe muddy or nasty, to keep the floor of our van nice. And we also used it when we would go camp. We would put it, go camp, we would go put it right inside the door. So we would have a mat outside to wipe your feet, and then this would go right inside the door where we would do the same thing. We would leave our shoes on it to keep our tent nice and clean. This is the other mat we had. We put this one right outside our tent, so before you got in your tent, you could wipe your feet off and then get into the tent. As hard as it is to believe, you will want to have a paper map. A lot of the places out west near the national parks,
you will lose service, and so it's great to have one of these. This is just as you can see, it's in a rough shape. We've had it a long time. It's just a State Farm road atlas, but as you can tell, it's a very detailed map of the roads so that if you lose your internet, you can still navigate to where you are going. So these are the laundry bags that we took with us. I bought them off of Amazon and they came in a pack of 2, and they were fantastic because you can throw them right in the wash with your laundry. So, you know, we would fill these up, and then when we would stop for laundry, we could wash them, and that way they were smelling good. So we really enjoyed having these.
Without saying that you will want a good sturdy tent if you are going to be tent camping or primitive camping with your family. This is the Kelty that we have. We really enjoyed the way it is set up. Typically when you're gonna tent camp with your family, you would think to have a nice big tent, but we found that having one just the right size for your family worked out great, especially on those cold nights, so that way you're using your body heat to warm each other. Ours, right now we're drying it out, so the cover is on actually inside out, but typically this would come, just pull out. This would come out and you would stake it to the ground, and it would make for this space right outside the tent. We also enjoyed that, and I would highly recommend finding a tent that does give you some space right outside the door. That's where we put our little porta potty, and we would be able to zip up and then just sit right in there when we had to use the bathroom. So, but like I said, you don't want to buy a cheapy tent, because when you get where there's really strong winds, you are thankful that you spent a little bit more invested in a good tent to keep you out of the wind and the rain and the ice and everything else that you might experience. So in addition to the tent, these were things that we had that we were really thankful that we did. We have these climate blow-up mats. I bought 2 of these blue ones on Camp Saver, and then I bought 2 green ones on Amazon, and I really like these blue ones better. For some reason they have a twist tube up here in the corner where the green ones had like a big circle opening, and these seem to hold the air better than the green ones, even though they said they were both static 5. We also have these camp pillows that fold up really nice, and I'll take one out here in a second to show you. And then we had 3 of these Bestie blankets by Kelty. We're big Kelty fans, and there you can see we have one hanging up, but those came in useful to stick inside your tent. If you were going to be in a really cold area, I would think maybe like a fleece blanket might be better, but these worked for the temperatures that we were in. So those are 3 things that I would say are super helpful to have.
You made it! I know, it's a lot of stuff and a little bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to put it out there so that you can kind of get your wheels turning if you're planning a trip, of some things that you might want to consider. Like I said, I know that when I was planning our trip, that was the most overwhelming thing for me, is like, what do we need? I don't want to forget anything. So that's why I made this video, was just to hopefully help you prepare for whatever adventure you are planning. And a couple of things to remember is, one thing that we didn't mention in the video or show was bear spray. So if you're going to be headed out west and do hiking out there, you'll want to get your hands on some bear spray. We live in Florida, so I found it difficult to have it delivered to our house, but we were able to get some once we went out west. Another thing to consider is sites like OfferUp. Like I mentioned, a lot of times you can find a lot of these things that you need used at a lot better prices. So that's something to think about as well. But we thank you for joining us today. We hope this was helpful. We would love to answer any questions that you have. You can leave them down in the comment box. And if you'd love to join us on this journey out west, be sure to click that subscribe button and notification bell, as we will be uploading our videos from our trip over these next couple of months. Thanks for joining us. Happy camping. Stay peachy.